morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Living a Full Life with Chronic Illness with Dr. Larry Berkelhammer. Good morning, Dr. Berkelhammer.
Morning, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Today, we'd like you to discuss environmental mastery, which I think, having read your website on environmental mastery, is a masterpiece. As I see it, it's accepting my environment, or your environment, my circumstances, with grace and respect, and if not joy, acceptance. And I saw to it in your description of it, environmental mastery, the irony of the more I accept whatever besieges me, the less awful it becomes. It becomes lessened when I recognize its full strength.
You know, a lot of people think that if they accept their pain, if they accept their fatigue, accept their malaise, accept their physical disability, they're giving into it. And the reality is, no. If you fight it, if you resist it, then that's going to make it worse. But if we accept it, then we're actually cultivating environmental mastery. The way to master our environment is to go with the flow. It's sort of like surfers. Now, have you ever watched surfing?
Yes.
Surfers don't try to control the ocean. Surfers don't even try to control the wave they're on. What surfers learn early on is to go with the flow, to ride the wave. Whatever the wave gives them, they need to ride it. They need to be sensitive to the changes as they're riding that wave and to stay with the wave and ride it. Surfers have environmental mastery, at least when they're surfing. Those of us who live with chronic illness, the way we develop environmental mastery is to be able to step back from our suffering and see that all our suffering is from our thinking. Now, there are a lot of ways to improve environmental mastery, aside from simply recognizing our thinking as the source of our troubles. There are a lot of techniques. Anything that helps us feel more in charge of our lives. For example, biofeedback is a wonderful tool, because when you get hooked up to biofeedback, you can learn to actually control your physiology. You can effect positive physiologic changes in your body through biofeedback. So biofeedback is one tool by which we can learn environmental mastery. Mental imagery is another one. We can learn to hold certain images in our minds. Let me give you an example. Let's say I have a memory in my head of a time when someone drove through a red light and crashed into me. If I hold on to that image and keep thinking about it and ruminating about it, my health will suffer. I will experience biochemically, physiologically, I will experience what I experienced at the time of the accident. On the other hand, if I'm able to step back from that and see, oh, this is just a memory, and then bring in a mental image of being at the ocean, or I like the ocean, so for me that would be wonderful, or being on a mountaintop because I like that, or being in some beautiful place. And you want to bring in as many senses as possible. So visually you want to be looking at whatever you find beautiful. You want to be smelling the flowers or smelling the ocean. You want to be hearing the waves, feeling the warm sand on your feet or whatever. And so that's another technique that's used, of conscious use of mental imagery. That is another way of cultivating environmental mastery. Any technique we use that helps us feel more in control of our lives is environmental mastery. And the problem, as I said earlier, with people living with chronic illness is it's very hard to feel hopeless and helpless when you're not feeling well day after day. So the most important thing living with chronic illness is to develop some sense that we have some control over our lives. That's environmental mastery.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you once again.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us once again, Dr. Larry Birkelhammer, Living with Chronic Illness.